Masechet Zevaḥim, Daf Nun Zayin. The Mishnah that we learned yesterday taught that Bechor, Maaser, and Pesach, these are all Kadashim Kalim. One can do Shechita anywhere in the Azara. One is required to place the blood just once, but it has to be Keneged HaYesod, on a place on the Mizbeach that is above where there is a base. So now we begin and ask, Keneged HaYesod min alan. What is the source that the blood has to be placed on the Mizbeach above where there is a base? Amar Rabbi Eliezer atya zirika me'ola. It's from a gezer hashava. It says the word zirika here, and it says the word zirika regarding a korban ola. And a korban ola has to be also at a spot that's above where there is a base. Ve'ola gufa min alan dichtib el yesod mizbach ha'ola limed al olat choba sheteuna yesod. And how do you know that the korban ola itself the blood has to be placed above where there is a base on the Mizbeach? Because the Pasuk says, on the base of the altar of the burnt offering. That teaches that regarding a Korban Olah, even though the simple reading of the Pasuk is Mizbach HaOlah, referring to the outside Mizbeach, where one puts an Olah. But we learned that it means the Mizbach of the Olah offering, one has to place where there is a base, El Yesod. Now once you're learning this Gezer HaShavah, why not say that just like a Korban Olah, you have to put on two corners, and the two corners will splash onto four sides. So maybe that means also for these Kadashim Kalim, for firstborn, Maaser, Pesach, maybe also it has to be on two corners that are four sides. But we said not so. We said in the Mishnah only a single placement of the blood. Amar Abaye, lama lidnu michtav saviv be'olah, saviv be'chatat, havu shenei chetubim b'hem ke'achad, v'chol shenei chetubim b'hem ke'achad, Abaye explains that it says the word saviv regarding korban olah. So saviv says it has to go all around. That means two corners that are four. And also says sabid regarding a chatat, where you have to place it on all four corners. And so in those two cases, you have to put it on multiple corners so that it reaches all sides. And it does not say saviv regarding kadashim kalim. And if you'll say, well, we can learn it from a binyan av, it says it in one place, so we can assume it in all the other places. And plus we have a gezer hashava. Not so, because it's only in two places. So therefore we have a rule. Anything that's mentioned in two places, those cannot be a source for other cases. Because why would the Torah say it in only two places? It must be it applies only to the two cases. And so that means that these multiple sprinklings are only for these two cases and not for Kadashim Kalim. That's fine according to the opinion that says if the Torah says something twice, then you don't learn from it. But there's another opinion that says even if the Torah says something twice, you can learn from it. So why not learn from the fact that the Korban Olah and Chatat are on multiple corners that also Kadashim Kalim? No, there's also Asham that has to be on multiple corners, and therefore, since it says it regarding Asham, and that's three different places that the Torah tells us has to be on multiple corners, so three, everybody agrees, will not be a precedent for any other cases. Now, the Bechor is raised by any farmer, and then he gives it to the Kohen, and the Kohen brings it as a Kadashim Kalim, and the meat, whatever is not placed on the Mizbeach, the rest of the meat is eaten by Kohanim. Tenor Rabbanan, minayin lebechor shenechal l'shnei yamim ve'layla, shene'emar, ubsaram yelach, kachazeh tenufa, uchshok hayamin. Hikisha katub lechazeh v'shok shel shelamim. Ma shelam ne'echalin l'shnei yamim ve'layla echad, af bechor ne'echal l'shnei yamim ve'layla echad. Baraita teaches, how do we know that the Bechor meat can be eaten for 2 days and 1 night, even though only the Kohanim can eat it? So in that sense, it's different from most Kadashim Kalim, like a Shilamim is a typical Kadashim Kalim. Shilamim can be eaten by anybody for 2 days and 1 night. So now this one is given to the Kohen. So now we're going to go back and forth and try to wonder, is this, since it's given to a Kohen, maybe it can be eaten only for one day and one night, like Kodesh Kodashim, or maybe not. Maybe it's given to a Kohen, and yet it can be eaten for longer, like other Kadashim Kalim in the terms of the time, even though only a Kohen can eat it. So Braita says, how do you know that a bechor can be in for 2 days and 1 night, even though only a kohen can eat it, but he has that longer amount of time? Because the pasuk says, we're going to come back to this pasuk a few times, so let's read it inside. Ubsaram yelach kachazeh tenufa uchshol kayamin lecha yihiyeh. So it's talking about the bechor, ach bechor, right here, and its meat will be to you, meaning to the kohen, and it will be just like just like the breast of the animal that's waved and the right shoulder, they will be yours. Notice it says yihiyeh lach and ends with the chayiyeh. That's a repetition of that. That's going to come be important later. But this, comparing it to where else do we know that from? That is from a korban shelamim. Korban shelamim, the owner that brings it as a korban, he has to give the breast and the thigh to the kohen, and then the owner can eat the rest. So by saying over here that the entire bechor will be like chazeh tenufach shekamin, it's explicitly making reference to comparing the bechor to a shelamim, in order to teach me. Just like shelamim can be in for 2 days and 1 night, so to a bechor can be in also for 2 days and 1 night, even though shelamim is anyone and bechor is only the kohen. This, now we already have an answer, it's a good answer, but now the Braita is going to continue and quote a long discussion between multiple rabbis about this very subject, offering other possible proofs. And so the sages asked in Karim Beyavne, where all the sages gathered together after the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, how do you know? Bechor. How long can a kohen eat the meat of the bechor? Na'ana Rabbi Tarfon v'amar l'shnei yamim v'layla echad. Rabbi Tarfon answered, I know, 2 days and 1 night. There was a new student there. He came to the Bet Midrash for the first time. He ended up becoming the famous Rabbi Yosei Galili. But because he's there the first time, I don't know, but no one else asked any questions. But he's there the first time and he's curious. And he didn't know, so he asked, Master, what's the source? Amar lo, Rabbi Tarfon answers, Beni, Shilamim Kodashim Kalim, or Bechor Kodashim Kalim, Ma Shilamim Nechalin L'Shnei V'Layla Echad, Af Bechor Nechalin Nechal L'Shnei Yamim V'Layla Echad. Rabbi Tarfon is simple, they're both in the same category. A Shilamim is Kodashim Kalim, Bechor is also Kodashim Kalim, so we're going to borrow the general rules. That Shilamim is 2 days and 1 night, so to Bechor is eaten for 2 days and 1 night. Even though it has a difference that the Bechor is given to the Kohen, but otherwise it's the same as a Shilamim. Amar lo Rabbi, Bechor matana laKohen v'chatat v'asham matana laKohen. Ma chatat v'asham liyom belayla, af Bechor liyom belayla. Rabbi Yosei Galili says, Master, I understand that comparison, but I can make a different comparison. A Bechor is given to the Kohen. Chatat and Hasham are also gifts that are given to the Kohen. So we can compare it to those. Just like Chatat and Hasham are eaten by the Kohen for 1 day and 1 night, so too a Bechor, since it's eaten by a Kohen, maybe it should also be 1 day and 1 night. Rabbi Tarfon says we're going to judge something that's from something more similar, and the matter that's we're going to compare it to something that is the most similar to. So let's see what is more similar to this. Shelamim is not brought because of a sin. One brings a shelamim for a holiday or a neder, nedava, he wants to bring one. So too, a bechor, it doesn't come because of a sin, but rather it has to be a firstborn animal. Therefore, these two are similar, and we should compare it this way. And say Shalamim is for 2 days, so to Bechor is also for 2 days and 1 night. Amalo Rabbi Nadun Davar Midavar Yilmad Davar Midavar. Yosei Galili says, okay, I agree with your methodology that we should compare like to like. Let's see. which matter is most similar to the other matter? But I can take that methodology and argue the opposite way. Chatat v'asham matana lakohen b'chor matana lakohen. Ma chatat v'asham en ba'in beneder undava, af bechor eno beneder undava. Ma chatat v'asham nechalin yom echad, af bechor nechal yom echad. Chatat and Hasham are a gift to the Kohen. Bechor is also a gift to the Kohen. So just like Chatat and Hasham, they are another similarity is Chatat and Hasham do not come as a voluntary offering. You can't volunteer a sin offering. Only if you actually are guilty. You did a sin by mistake, you bring Korban Chatat. So you can't bring it voluntarily. Bechor also you cannot bring voluntarily. If it happens to be the firstborn animal, then you have to bring it. You can't choose to bring a non-firstborn and say, I'm going to give this to the Kohen as a firstborn. That doesn't work. Therefore, look at all these similarities. So we should compare this one and say, just like a Korban Hatat and Hasham can be only for one day, so to Bechor only for one day. So now the Beit Tarfon has no answer to this. All right, he tried and tried. So come to the rescue. Kafas Rabbi Akiva, Nistalek Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Akiva jumps into the ring and Rabbi Tarfon leaves. He didn't leave the room, but he's quiet. And now Rabbi Akiva is going to take over the boxing match. And he says, Amar lo, Harehu Omer Ubsaram Yelach. Hikishan HaKatub LeHazeh Veshok Shel Shelamim. Ma Shelamim Nechalin L'Shnei Yamim V'Layla Echad. Af Bechor Nechal L'Shnei Yamim V'Layla Echad. Rabbi Akiva responds to Rabbi Yosei HaGalili with the same argument that we started off this Baraita with, where it says, Ubsaram Yelach, that the flesh of the Bechor will be yours, the Kohanim, just like the breast and the thigh of the Shelamim. So Hikishan HaKatub LeChazeh Veshok, the Pasuk is comparing the Bechor to the Chazeh and Shok of a Shelamim. Just like a Shelamim is 2 days and 1 night, so to a Bechor is going to be 2 days and 1 night. Amar lo, Hikashto LeChazeh Veshok Shel Shelamim, Ani Makisho LeChazeh Veshok Shel Todah. Ma Todah Nechal Yom V'Layla, Af Bechor Nechal Leyom V'Layla. Rabbi Yosei, however, says, you compared this phrase, Shok HaYamin V'Chazeh Tenufa, to a Shelamim. However, you know that there's another animal where also the owners have to give to the Kohen those same pieces, the Chazeh and the Shok. So that's a Korban Todah. So I can compare the Bechor to a Korban Todah, where also that's Chazeh and Shok are given to the Kohen. And I'll say, just like a Korban Todah is eaten for 1 day and 1 night, so to a Bechor only 1 day and 1 night. Why'd you choose to compare to Shelamim, compare to Todah? They both have the same law in common, that the Chazeh and Shok are given to the Kohen, and so when the Torah says that a Bechor is all yours, just like the Chazeh and Shok, maybe it's comparing it to a Todah. Amar lo, harehu omer ubsaram yelach, shen tamud omar lecha yiyeh, ma tamud omar lecha yiyeh, hosif hakatub havaya acheret b'Bechor. So Rebbe Akiva says, all right, you won that point, but I have another argument to bring, and that is that besaram yelach, it says twice, the flesh will be yours. Why do I need that? It already says lecha yiyeh in the pasuk, as we pointed out before. So why does it say also lecha yiyeh? So this adds another you get it to the Kohanim. So therefore, one of them, we know you get it for 1 day and 1 night. But the second time it says, it shall be yours, that's to add more time to them. It's yours even to eat on the second day. That's how we know that. And Rabbi Akiva, right, won this round. That was, this whole discussion was repeated to Rabbi Ishmael. Amar lehen se'u v'imru lo Rabbi Akiva, ta'ita, toda mehechan lamda mishelamim, דבר הלמד בהיקש, חוזר מלמד בהיקש, האין עליך לידון בלשון אחרון, אלא בלשון ראשון. When it was repeated to Rabbi Ishmael said, go tell Rabbi Akiva that he made a mistake. He didn't make a mistake in his conclusion, rather he made a mistake in giving up so easily in the first argument. He had an argument over here and said, Besram Yelach, that's a hekesh, that's a strong argument. And this hekesh to Korban Shelamim is better than the hekesh to a Korban Todah, because Korban Todah requires a double hekesh. And therefore, Rabbi Akiva, you shouldn't have given up on this argument and went to this other one, Lecha yiyeh, it says it twice, Lecha yiyeh. You should have stuck with the original argument, because here's why it's better. Todah mehechan lamda mishelamim. How do we know that a korban todah you have to give the chazeh and shok? We only learned that from a korban shelamim, from a hekesh. So therefore, v'chi davar amed behekesh chozim el amed behekesh. Can you learn a double hekesh? No. And therefore, sorry, Rabbi Yosei Galili, I'm not going to learn a double hekesh from todah that it's only one day. I'm going to stick with one hekesh and say that the korban, the bechor, it says it's like the chazeh and shok. Chazeh and shok is said directly in a shelamim. So that's one hekesh. Good, I'll learn that 2 days. I'm not going to learn the chazeh and shok to korban todah, which is itself only because korban todah is right next to shelamim. So we say, oh, shelamim is chazeh and tunah given to the kohen, so too todah. But that's already by hekesh. So that makes it, I'm not going to learn a hekesh from a hekesh. Therefore, the Bishmael says, you should not have given the second argument. You could have stuck with the first argument. Now, since the Bishmael says this first argument from one hekesh is the better one, and we don't need this second one from lechayeh, these extra words, lechayeh, what is Bishmael going to do with them? From here we learn that if a bechor animal gets a mum, it gets a blemish, and now it cannot be sacrificed. So what do we do with it now? I might have thought maybe the original farmer can keep it. He doesn't have to give it to a kohen. Not true. It's also a gift to the kohen. In fact, the kohen is actually better for the kohen, because now the kohen does not have to sacrifice it. He can keep it for himself, and he can eat it, do whatever he wants with it, without even having to make it a sacrifice. This is not said explicitly in the Torah. Go look in the Torah, you won't know what to do with a bechor that has a mum. And so we learn lechayeh is an extra one that says not only if it has no mum, then it's yours to make a sacrifice. If it has a mum, it's also yours, kohen, and you to do it with it whatever you want. Now, where's Rabbi Akiva going to learn that law from? Besaram, had tam v'chad ba'amum. Rabbi Akiva learns it from the plural, besaram, their flesh, more than one type of flesh. Why does it have to say that in plural? That means this flesh goes to the kohen, whether it's unblemished or if it is blemished. So that's the two. That's why it's in plural. Rabbi Ishmael, what do you learn from the besaram? Why is it plural? And he'll answer besaram. The plural simply is going on the different types of animals that are mentioned before. Here, bechor, shor, or kesev, or ez. So there's three types of animals. Besaram, no matter what type of animal it is, that flesh goes to the kohen. So Rabbi Ishmael is learning this according to Peshat. That's simply referring to the one before, and Rabbi Akiva uses this to learn this derasha. So in the end, they're all learning all the laws, but they just learn it from different pisukim based on their different methodologies. B'may kami palge mor sabar hemenu v'davar acher heve hekesh mor sabar la heve hekesh. What's at the essence of the machloket between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Ishmael? One master, that is Rabbi Ishmael, thinks that if we learn something from its own context and another part of the law from a different context, that's already described as a hekesh. In this case, this is referring to the fact that we learn korban todah, that you have to give the chazeh and shok. We learn that from shelamim. So that is something that you're learning from davar acher. But regarding the time, we know from the laws of korban todah itself that that's that one day. So now, is that called one hekesh, even though you're just learning part of the law, what you have to give to the kohen? Now the timing, that I'm not learning from shelamim, so it's not a full hekesh, only a partial hekesh. I'm only learning one aspect of various aspects from there. So if you say that is considered a hekesh, now we already have one hekesh from shelamim to todah, and now you can't go make a second hekesh from korban todah to bechor, and that's why Rabbi Ishmael rejected that reasoning. The other master, that is Rabbi Akiva, said when you have such a situation, that's not called a hekesh. That first comparison from korban shelamim to korban todah, where we learn, shelamim, you have to give the chazeh and shok, also korban todah. Yeah, but you're only learning one, davar acher, only one part of it. You're not learning the whole law, because regarding the timing, todah itself says that this is only for one day. Therefore, that's not called a one-step hekesh. That's not nothing. And therefore, the next step when we say, oh, look, Bechor, the Pasuk says, a Bechor is like Chazeh and Shok. So just like Bechor, we're talking about the timing. So Chazeh and Shok, which Chazeh v'Shok? You could compare it to Korban Todah, no problem. That's only one Hekesh, Korban Todah. What are we learning from Korban Todah? The time. That's the main thing. So that's one Hekesh. The time of Korban Todah is therefore the same as the time of Bechor. It also is only one day. That was Rabbi Yosef Galili's rejection of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said, you're right, that's a rejection. That would be a valid Hekesh, and therefore he has to come up with something else. So that's at the essence of their machloket, whether that first step, when you're only learning one aspect, and that one aspect is not the key aspect that you're transmitting to the second Hekesh, right? Because we're only learning, Chazeh and Shok, no, therefore also Korban Todah Chazeh v'Shok. Great, you're learning that. But then the second Hekesh is actually not about the Chazeh v'Shok, it's about the timing, and the timing is said regarding in the Korban Todah explicitly. That's not learned from a Hekesh. So therefore, that Hekesh is solid according to Rabbi Akiva. The first thing that you learned, which is from a Hekesh, but that's just a detail, that's a side point, not the main thing that I'm learning to the final destination. And therefore, Rabbi Akiva says that is valid. Rabbi Ishmael says, even though you're learning two different things, from Shelamim to Todah, you're learning that you give the Chazeh and Shok. From Todah to Bechor, you're learning the timing. Even though it's two different things, you still need the first one so that you know the second one is included in Chazeh v'Shok, because that's what the Bechor is comparing to Korban Todah, because it says regarding Bechor, this will be like Chazeh v'Shok, so you really need that detail in order to make the Hekesh in the first place. So that's considered two. Rabbi Akiva says, no, we're learning two different things. It's considered just one step, and it's permitted. Now we're going to bring another case where it's the same thing, where we're learning there's one part A of a Hekesh is about one subject, and part B of a Hekesh is about a different subject. And here it has to do with the korbanot that we bring on Yom Kippur. We bring a pad and a sa'ir, and the sprinklings that are done in the Kodesh Kodashim and also in the Kodesh. Regarding the Kodesh Kodashim, the Pasuk says, Achat lemala and sheva lemata. One up, meaning down this way, like overhand, and sheva lemata, meaning underhand. Now, how many do you do overhand? How many underhand? It says regarding the pad that you do 7 times from below. It says regarding the sa'ir that you do 1 time. But it doesn't say the other way around. It doesn't say regarding the pad how many you do overhand, and it doesn't say regarding the sa'id how many you do underhand. So we make a hekesh between those two, that since it says 7 in this one and it says 1 in the other one, and we know that both you have to do overhand, lemala and lemata for both, but it says for one of them it says 1 of them is 7, we'll connect them together, and now we know both for the pad and the sa'id, in Kodesh Kodashim, achat lemala, sheva lemata. That's one hekesh. And now, there's another Hekesh that says, just like you sprinkle those things inside the Kodesh Kodashim, chen yaseh lo al moed. Also, when you're in the Kodesh and you're sprinkling there towards the Parochet, you have to do it the same way. Achat lemala v'sheva lemata. That's what the Baraita teaches. Keshem shemazeh lifnai v'lifnim, achat lemala v'sheva lemata, midam apad, kach mazeh b'hechal. Just like in the Kodesh Kodashim, you do 1 up and 7 down for the blood of the pad, so too in the hechal. U'shem shelifnai v'lifnim, achat lemala v'sheva lemata, midam asa'ir, kach mazeh b'hechal. And also, you're going to sprinkle both animals' blood in the Kodesh Kodashim, and again in the Echal. So just like when you're in Kodesh Kodashim, you do 1 up and 7 down for the Sa'ir, so too in the Echal. Now, is this a double Hekesh or not? Let's see. Ela, so if you say that the Lahav Hekesh, that this double type of Hekesh, the first one is not considered a Hekesh. That's Rabbi Akiva. The Rabbi Akiva can accept this derivation. Why? Because what are we learning in the first step from the Pad and Sa'ir to each other? That we're learning how many are up and how many are down. Okay, good. So you learn that from each other. Now, the main Hekesh that we're making between the inside sprinklings and outside sprinklings is just the fact that you have to make all these sprinklings up and down. We're not learning precisely that how many up and how many down. We need just to know that there are sprinklings. And so therefore, the first one is about one subject. How many up and how many down? You learn that. Okay, that's a separate thing. And that doesn't count. That's not called a hekesh for the purpose of the link from inside to outside. And so therefore this is a permitted hekesh according to the Rabbi Akiva. But according to the Ishmael, who says, well, even though the two links are about different subjects, but you need the first one to know how to do the second one, because you need to know it's 1 and 7 inside, so that when you learn from inside to outside that the outside needs these types of both types of sprinklings, you're going to need to know how many. And so we need that essential component, even though the main subject of the two pars comparison is not the main subject of the second one. Still, that's the first one's called a hekesh, and you can't make a double hekesh. What are you going to do about that? Rabbi Ishmael. And he'll answer, Mekomot hu degamre mehadadeh. No, what we're doing in the second one is just learning where. Just like you sprinkle inside, I wouldn't know you have to sprinkle outside, so you have to do the sprinkling outside also. So it's telling me that you have to do the sprinkling outside, and you'll do it in the same way. But this is considered as disconnected from the first learning. And these are two completely separate hekeshim, nothing to do with each other. It's not a double hekesh at all. One is about how many times you do the blood. The second one is that you have to sprinkle outside like inside. So therefore, Rabbi Ishmael would say, this is okay. It's not linked together like the Bechor, where the only way we know that the Bechor is linked to the Todah is because it says Kachazeh hatenufa, just like the Chazeh and the Shok. That is an essential ingredient, and that we'll only know for Todah because we compared it to Shelamim. And so that one for Bechor is a double hekesh and not allowed, but this one, Rabbi Ishmael would say, is not connected to each other and therefore allowed. Or another answer, this is all one big hekesh. We're learning the outside from the inside all at the same time that we're learning that the inside ones are 1 and 7. And so this is not a double hekesh because according to the Bishmel, it's all one big hekesh. So these two answers are almost opposite. The first one is, these are two completely separate hekeshim that have independent. So you can make one hekesh and then I'm making another hekesh. Happens to be that one of the components is in the first hekesh is the same as one of the components in the second hekesh, but they're not dependent on each other at all. They're about two different subjects. And the second answer is actually no, they're not two hekeshim because they're all one hekesh, they're all mixed together. They were learning everything from everything, and therefore it's not a double hekesh, and it's permitted, whereas the one for Bechor is in fact a two hekeshim. You can't put those all together. They're not all the same. The sprinklings are all the same. It's the same blood, same animals. You're doing it inside, doing it outside. We put them all together. We learn them all together. Whereas these are different. The other ones are different animals. And one you do for 2 days. Shelamim, Todah is 1 day, and then so they have different differences. You can't just put all of them together because the details of each are separate, and therefore that's a double hekesh. Rabbi Ishmael says is not allowed. Bishlama lemanda amar la have hekesh hainu dichti b'mo shevotechem tabiu lechem tenufa. Now we're going to have another example of something that we learn A to B and B to C, but A to B we're only learning partially. So the question is that called a hekesh or not? So the following derivation will be fine for Rabbi Akiva, who says that first A to B is, since you're only learning one part of it, from A to B, therefore we don't consider that a hekesh, and therefore you can do B to C. It's not a double hekesh. This is regarding how much flour are you going to bring for the 2 loaves of Shavuot. That's the source, that's A. From there we're going to learn to how much flour we bring for the 10 Hametz loaves for Korban Todah, that's B. And from there we're going to learn how much flour do we bring for the 30 Matzot loaves in a Korban Todah. So let's see step by step. So this is if you say that this type of derivation is not officially a hekesh, then we understand. It says, "Mimoshevotechem," from your dwellings, you should bring 2 loaves. That's on Shavuot, we bring 2 loaves. Shen Talmud lomar taviu, ma Talmud lomar taviu. We don't need this word taviu. Here's the pasuk. The 16 already says that Machorat Shabbat Shavi'it, after you count 50 days, Vikrabtem mincha chadasha ladonai. So this already says that you're going to offer a meal offering, and that's the 2 loaves. Then the next pasuk, Mimoshe betevotechem tabiu lechem tenufa. You don't need to say taviu because it already said vihikrabtem. So what is this extra word taviu coming to teach us? Kol she'ata mebi mimakom acher harehu kazeh ma lehalan isaron lechala afkan isaron lechala. The word taviu is coming to teach you that anytime you're going to bring a korban like this in another place, like this, meaning that it's made out of chametz. Most of the time, korban mincha is matzah, not chametz. But shtei lechem is chametz. When you come to korban todah, you have to bring 40 loaves together with the animal. 30 of them are matzot. 10 of them are chametz. And so we learn that anytime you're going to bring chametz, like this, or the one on Shavuot, so you have to bring the same amount of flour. Just like on Shavuot, we bring 1 isaron of flour for every challah. Isaron is 1/10 of an ephah. So 2 loaves is going to be 2/10 of an ephah. So to here on Korban Todah, you're going to bring 1 isaron for every loaf. 10 loaves, so that's going to be 10/10 of an ephah altogether for a Korban Todah. That's what we learn from here. Now you might compare them differently. You might say that on Shavuot you have a total of 2 esronim because there's 2 loaves. But maybe that's what we're supposed to derive. Anytime you bring chametz loaves, all together it's 2 esronim. And that would mean you have to take 2 esronim and divide it by 10 for a korban todah. Maybe it means the total. No, we don't say that because Talmud lomar tihiena. The extra word is a limiting word. It shall be like this, meaning precisely like this is only for the korban on Shavuot. But we take the same ratio of 1 isaron per challah, and that's what we learn to Korban Todah. So we see here that we're learning only part of something from Shavuot. From Shavuot, we're learning the ratio. But then we apply it to Todah, and Todah, instead of multiplying it by 2, we multiply it by 10. So we take the local Pesukim and Todah to teach us that there are 10. We just take 1 point from Shavuot. So we're not learning a whole thing, and so that's why this is something that we're learning partial from somewhere else and part of it from here. It's almost like we're just learning the definition of what is a challah going to be from there. But this is not a full hekesh, and therefore, according to Rabbi Akiva, that doesn't count as a hekesh. So we could then follow up with another, now the first hekesh. Now we know that you need 10 isaron for all 10 chametz. How do you know? So we need 1/10 of an ephah for each loaf of chametz, which is 10 altogether. Now, asara lemasa minayin. How do you know that you need the same amount, 10 esronot of an ephah, meaning 1 full ephah, for all the other 30 loaves that are made out of matzah? It's equivalent that the ones that are made out of matzah are only 1/3 as big as each one that's made out of chametz. So how do you know that all 30 will be the same amount of flour as the 10 chametz ones? Talmud omad al halot lechem chametz neged chametz have masa. Since the pasuk there regarding korban todah says lechem and chametz back to back, to teach you that the ones that are chametz will correspond to the ones that are matzah. Correspond meaning that it's the same amount of flour for both. So this is a hekesh. So we have a hekesh here. Can you do this hekesh? Rabbi Akiva says yes, it's fine, because we're only making 1 full hekesh from B to C, from todah chametz to todah matzot. that's fine. And how about what we learned from Shavuot? No, that's something that we learned. We learned just a part of it from somewhere else, and part of it from here, and therefore that's not considered a hekesh. But what about according to the Bishmael, who says from A to B is itself a hekesh, and then you can't make a hekesh on top of a hekesh? What will he say? And the answer is taviu yeterahi. He's not learning the A to B with a hekesh, but rather from the word taviu, which is an extra word. It's a ribui. You don't have to say that. So what's the point of this word being here? It's telling you that although it says the word taviu here, because it's an extra word, it's as if it's written by itself in the chametz of Korban Todah. And therefore, since the first thing is not learned by Hekesh, but it's as if it's already written there, so then there's only one Hekesh. There's not a Hekesh after Hekesh, but rather we're using this extra word to apply the law directly to Todah of chametz, and that way it's only one Hekesh. The end of the Mishnah says, "Pesach enon echal." The Korban Pesach can only be eaten at night. Most other Korbanot can be eaten during the day. After you do Shechita and sprinkle the blood, then you can eat it the rest of the day and that night. But Korban Pesach, no, it has to start at night and end at midnight. Man Tana, who is the author of our Mishnah? Amar Rav Yosef, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, he detanya Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer. Ne'amar kan ba'layla hazeh, ne'amar lehalan ve'abarti, be'eres Misraim ba'layla hazeh. Ma lehalan ad chasot, afkan ad chasot. So Rav Yosef says, it is the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, because it says in one place, ba'layla hazeh, that you have to eat Korban Pesach on this night. And it also says regarding Makat Bechorot that I will pass over through Mitzrayim on this night. So when did Makat Bechorot happen precisely? It happened at midnight. So too, Korban Pesach has to be eaten at midnight. Gezer HaShavah, Balayla Hazeh and Balayla Hazeh, which would be symbolically very significant, that right at that moment that you have Makat Bechorot is happening, and it's the blood of the Korban Pesach that's on the doorpost that's protecting them from Makat Bechorot, they'll be eating that Korban precisely until that time. After that time, that's it. Makat Bechorot is finished. And this is deeply associated with Makat Bechorot, so it should be eaten at night from sundown until midnight, but that's it. That's the ending time. Amar lo Rabbi Akiva v'lo kevar ne'emar v'achatem oto b'chipazon ad shat chipazon. Rabbi Akiva says, I disagree. I think that you can eat Korban Pesach in the morning, because it says that you have to eat Korban Pesach in haste. And when were the Bnei Yisrael hurrying up? That's in the morning when they actually left. They left in the morning and they were leaving in a hurry. So the time of chipazon is the morning. So that means you should eat it bechipazon until dawn when they left in a hurry. אם כן, מה תלמוד לומר בלילה הזה, שיכול יהיה ככל הקודשים הנאכלים ביום? תלמוד לומר בלילה יהיה נאכל ואינו נאכל ביום. If so, according to Rabbi Akiva, why does it say that you can eat it on this night? Right, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah took that as a reference to midnight through Gezer HaShavah. So why say balayla hazeh if you have all night? The answer is because otherwise I would have thought that just like all other sacrifices, you could eat it starting during the day. Once you do the sprinkling, you could eat it during the day and then into the night. That's why I have to say regarding Korban Pesach, ba laila. You cannot start eating it during the day. It's true, you do the shechita and you prepare it during the day, but then you have to start eating it at night. So eat it at night, all night, but don't start eating it during the day. Amar le Abaye, umimai de Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah udeoraita, dilma de Rabbanan ul harchik min ha'avera. Abaye asks Rav Yosef, why are you assuming that the Mishnah is only according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? And when it says you can only eat it until chatzot, that's midoraita, and you learn that from the word chatzot, from the word balayla hazeh, that's only until chatzot midoraita. Why not say that it's according to Rabbanan, meaning Rabbi Akiva, who says, really, midoraita, you can eat it till the morning, but as in other cases, when there's something that you can do until the morning, like saying Kiryat Shema, then the rabbis say, you know what? You should do it earlier. You should finish it by chatzot in order to keep someone away from sin. So otherwise you're going to fall asleep and forget. So why not say that the Ela ad Chatzot in our Mishnah is actually midrabanan, and therefore it can be according to the Rabbanan, meaning it could be according to the Rabbi Akiva also. And the answer is Imken, my Ela ad Chasot, Ela ki hatam, ma hatam deoraita, afkan name deoraita. If so, how come our Mishnah says Ela ad Chasot? In all the other Mishnayot previously, it just says you can eat them until Chatzot. It doesn't say Ela ad Chasot. So how come the weird formulation here? Rather, it must be that this law, that the Korban Pesach is eaten only until Chasot, is the same as the other things on the list when it says that it has to be only in Limnuyav, for those that have appointed themselves and joined in, and it has to be at night and not during the day. Those are all deoraita laws, and this is the next thing on the list. Rather, the best reading of this Mishnah is that until Chatzot is deoraita, and that's why Rav Yosef says it has to be the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Hadran alach ezehu mekoman.